ain't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, today's video, I wanted to take a moment to kick off Black History Month with a special video about a character that I feel like not only do DC Comics fans not really know about or even talk about, but a character that even DC Comics themselves have seemingly forgot about. A character who, honestly, by every metric humanly possible, has been in the comic book equivalent of witness protection since 2018, and that is the character Tanya Spears, aka Power Girl. Now, to get this out of the way, you're probably wondering, where did this Power Girl come from? What about Karen Starr, aka Kara Zor-El, the Power Girl of Earth 2? What is going on here? Well, the truth of the matter here is that during the New 52 era of DC Comics, Kara Zor-El was still Power Girl in the New 52, no differently than she was in the New Earth continuity prior to Flashpoint. But around the time of World's Finest number 23 in 2014, a new character was introduced, and that character was, you guessed it, Tanya Spears. Though at the time of her induction into the DC Comics pantheon of superheroes, she didn't have superpowers. She was simply the daughter of a confidant of Power Girl, a woman by the name of Samya Spears. But Samya Spears was killed by Desaad, and in the wake of Samya's death, Tanya began working at Star Labs. Now, to be 100% fair here, Tanya is a very interesting character just by virtue of the fact that while the Kara Zor-El version of Power Girl is a Kryptonian who hails from Earth 2, Tanya Spears herself is not from Earth 2 the way the original New Earth continuity Power Girl nor the New 52 version of the character are. Tanya is a native to Prime Earth and took up the mantle of Power Girl when then Power Girl Karen Starr, the New 52 version of the character that I've been talking about up to this point, went back to Earth 2. Tanya is literally Power Girl by virtue of Kara Zor-El dubbing her as such. This also makes Tanya unique in a lot of respects to other legacy characters that exist not only in DC Comics, but across both DC and Marvel, and even in a lot of ways across other imprints that also happen to have legacy characters as well. Tanya didn't just up and one day decide she's going to be Power Girl. And while it is something she's colloquially known as, it's actually her legal superhero name, since Kara Zor-El signed it over to her in a legally binding document when she returned to Earth 2. This was technically DC's method of legitimizing the character in the eyes of original Power Girl fans, but it's definitely something not even Miles Morales can say about being Spider-Man, or Kamala Khan can even say about being Ms. Marvel. Those are handshake agreements at best. Not only does she possess the legal rights to the Power Girl moniker, but she's also in possession of Kara Zor-El's money. As Karen Starr, Kara Zor-El had banked up billions of dollars in assets and money, and Karen signed it over to Tanya Spears when she left. The funny thing about Tanya is that she didn't immediately show up on the scene with superpowers in her debut. It actually wouldn't be until a couple of issues later in World's Finest number 26 where her powers had become evident. How Tanya got her powers and abilities are a bit murky. She initially believed it was her proximity to the portal that Karen Starr used to return to Earth 2, but the truth is, that's not the case. Yes, being near the portal was one way that all of this came into play, but it just doesn't make sense. And initially, I was of the belief that she had always had her powers, but maybe the portal was just a way of activating the dormant metahuman powers within herself, because one of the things we take note of is that one of Darkseid's servants, Desaad, tried on more than one occasion to kidnap Tanya for reasons unknown prior to her powers ever activating. So it's likely Desaad knew she would manifest powers eventually, considering her young age of 17 years old at the time of her powers activating. I thought it likely that she was ready to produce evidence of these powers before Karen even opened that portal. But roughly a year later, it would actually be revealed in 2015's Secret Origins number 9 that it was rather a device created by Dr. Gerard from tech that once belonged to Superman that granted Tanya her abilities. This was all technology that was supposed to just transfer the power of a Kryptonian to a targeted source. And while Tanya has powers similar to the original Power Girl, she does actually lack some of her key abilities. She doesn't possess heat vision and she lacks the ability to fly. And while some people will probably tell you she can fly now, she actually can't. Oftentimes people accuse me when I do these videos, these little character breakdowns, they often accuse me of just reading the wiki. But if that's all I really did, I would, for one, be doing you a disservice, and for two, I wouldn't have caught this little tidbit. She does not have the ability to fly. In fact, I've looked around on various different sites and every last single one of them says she can fly. However, I have read about roughly 44 some odd different issues of DC Comics, ranging from Teen Titans in 2014 and 2015 to Christopher Priest's Deathstroke series not long after that, going back to New 52's World Finest, as well as reading some of DC Future State where she shows up very briefly. That's a combined total of about roughly 40 to 44 different issues, and across all of them, I can only count 2 times where she did anything that even remotely looked like she was flying, and both of those instances were in back-to-back issues of Deathstroke, and in both cases, it's pretty obvious she's actually not flying, she's just falling. In both instances, she, as well as the rest of Team Defiance, are just jumping out of a plane. Tanya has even specifically called out that she lacks the ability to fly, stating that she can't fly yet. That said, she also doesn't possess Kara Zor-El's super hearing, nor her X-ray vision, or her super breath, and as you would imagine, her not being Kryptonian, she also doesn't possess any of the solar energy absorption abilities that would be associated with a Kryptonian like Kara Zor-El. On the flip side of that, since she is not a Kryptonian, she also does not have any weakness to any form of kryptonite. Tanya's bread and butter as Power Girl is that she possesses an ability Power Girl does not, and that is her capability of shifting her size and height, as well as her overall mass. Tanya typically, before getting her powers, walked around at a height of 5'3", but when her powers were activated, she gained muscle mass far greater than she had originally, which was virtually none, and her height increased to being somewhere in the neighborhood of the 6 foot tall range. And using her powers, she's been able to increase her height to levels that can only be classified as gigantic. And while Tanya possesses the ability to heal from any damage faster than a normal human, these regenerative properties actually increase as she grows in size. It's effectively a quicker way to heal damage she'd otherwise require downtime to recover from. If she's ever severely hurt, she can either increase her size or decrease her size, and she would heal instantaneously. Now, while those powers had nothing to do with the original Power Girl, Tanya did gain superhuman strength, speed, durability, stamina, and reflexes on levels either similar to or on par with Power Girl Karen Starr. And while Tanya lacks a Kryptonian physiology, she does possess superhuman strength that is impressive to say the least. Her strength allows her to lift objects far larger and denser to herself, and while it's debatable whether this strength is on the same level as the original Power Girl, it is safe to say that when she grows in height, that her strength increases exponentially. She's been seen lifting cars, buses, and other large objects with no effort whatsoever at her normal height. But when she's giant-sized, she can lift battleships and cargo ships, as well as other colossally sized objects. While Tanya's superhuman strength is incredible. One thing to note about her superhuman strength is that Kryptonian strength is usually modeled around a sheer force of will in manipulating energy fields that allow them to manipulate things that are far heavier than anything a normal human would be able to lift. Case in point, being able to lift a building or a mountain or a tank or anything of that nature. Characters like Superman, Power Girl, Supergirl, and Superboy, so on and so forth, they're able to do these things without destroying the thing that they're lifting because of the energy fields that they subconsciously manipulate in order to do this. Tanya doesn't have that. If Tanya tries to lift a massive object, like case in point, a building, the way that a Power Girl would possibly try to, while Kara would be able to lift it without compromising its structural integrity, Tanya would not be able to do this. If Tanya tries to lift a building the same way that Kara does, the building would literally fall apart in her hands, even if she were giant size and did so. She would have to be much more careful about how she lifts something than Kara would have to be. That is the difference between Kara's levels of strength and Tanya's. And like the original Power Girl, Tanya is invulnerable to most, if not all, conventional forms of weaponry and attacks unless it comes from someone either equally as powerful as herself or greater. She fought against Superboy a time or two, and even his attacks didn't harm her in any significant way. Bullets have no effect on her whatsoever, regardless of caliber, and one of the only things we've ever seen truly hurt her on any meaningful level was Deadline's Infinity Rifle, and in that instance, he had to shoot her in the stomach at point-blank range. Her eyes are not invulnerable in the same way that her skin might be. She has been blinded by Tim Drake in the past with extremely bright flashes of light, the same way a normal human would be, and Deathstroke was able to use his plasma burst directed inside of her ear at point-blank range to throw off her equilibrium. Her speed and reflexes are also fast enough that she's able to perceive the trajectory of a bullet in mid-flight and even catch or deflect it as she sees fit. Tanya is also considered to be a genius level intellect and is a postdoctorate level graduate and is considered, at least by the time of Deathstroke Volume 4, number 15, to be the youngest MIT graduate in the DC Comics universe, having graduated at age 17. Speaking of, she even had a job at Star Labs immediately after getting her postdoc, and for the record, she has 2 PhDs, though it's never specifically stated what these PhDs are actually in. Now that said, it's safe to say that they're probably somewhere in the academic arenas of science, maybe even particularly computer science and or engineering, because while working at Star Labs and just in general, we have seen her operate on levels where she has managed to create devices at Star Labs that helped the original Power Girl. She was also able to invent sunglasses to help Deathstroke obscure the fact that he had recently lost his sight, and these sunglasses were capable of operating in a way very similar to something James Bond would have. It possessed Bluetooth capability as well as a bone-conducting speaker, so that way he wouldn't require any actual earbuds. He would be able to hear everything just by virtue of wearing the sunglasses. Tanya is a very interesting character to me, just by virtue of the fact that for a character who is relatively new to superhero shenanigans, she is about as naive in superheroing as you might imagine, but she also has monitored superheroes long enough, especially working at Star Labs and working alongside the original Power Girl, that she does have opinions on why superheroes are so ineffective, that they constantly wait for bad things to happen just to act. And she even said as much to Tim Drake when she was auditioning for the Teen Titans, letting them know that they basically sit around and wait for bad things to happen to do anything, and that if superheroes ever actually did anything proactively, maybe people like her mother would not have died at the hands of Desaad. That said, I did mention that she is naive, and while she does talk a good game about what superheroes should do, One would have to look no further than the Deathstroke series by Christopher Priest, where it is very much heavily implied that Tanya did not really do any homework on any of the Teen Titans' biggest villains while she was on the team, because she does wind up working very closely with Deathstroke, not even realizing who he truly is. That said, even after she discovers his actual identity, she does in fact remain working alongside him and even does a lot of good being a part of Deathstroke's academy, aka Defiance. Aside from all that, we don't really get to see Tanya Spears as much anymore. She has pretty much been, as I said at the beginning of this video, in witness protection for the last 6 years, and while the last time we saw her, she was believed to have unalived herself, when in truth, she had actually sent her consciousness into the inner space so that she could find the original Power Girl, and when she did, she realized that her original mentor was trapped in between realities. Unfortunately, her best friend, Wallace Rudolph West, aka Kid Flash, discovered her body while she was unconscious and just presumed that she was dead, and thus Tanya Spears was treated as though she was dead and even buried. And we haven't seen her since. We have seen the original Power Girl around lately. She has even had her own series, and not so much as a word has been breathed about Tanya Spears, so I have a lot of questions about what DC is planning to do with this character if they ever decide to do anything with this character. You guessed it, obligatory channel outro time. If you're not subscribed to the channel, consider doing so. Clicking that subscribe button and tapping that notification bell ensures that you get more videos just like this one, and you don't miss any of my other content that I drop throughout the week, plus my live streams every Thursday and Saturday. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure you click that like button, keep it plus ultra, and sound off in the comments.